Football happy hour on HQ. We are ranking the top free agent defensive players, also the top defensive players in the draft. These are according to Pete Prisco's rankings with tags out of the way. Shaq Barrett is the #1 ranked pass rusher according to Pete Prisco. His overall rank was #6 in his top 100. Then it's Lawson, Aguaro, Dupree, Ingram, all those guys top 25 players. So even though there may not be a ton of edge rushers in the draft, there are a ton of edge rushers to go out and get in free agency if that's a need, and probably is a need for many teams out there around the NFL. We're joined now by Ryan Wilson and Bryant McFadden. I'm Chris Hassel. Ryan is our draft analyst. Bryant McFadden, two-time Super Bowl champion for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ryan, #1, Shaq Barrett, likely hitting the open market and likely not going back to Tampa because they've already, they used their tag on Chris Godwin. They extended Levante David. How much money is Shaq Barrett going to be able to pull in on the open market here?
It's going to be a lot, Chris. It's going to be close to $20 million if you look at some of the expectations for what he has earned and what he deserves. This is a guy who was undrafted coming out of Colorado State, spent the first 5 years in Denver, was a part-time player in those 5 seasons. He didn't play the first year. He totaled 13 sacks. In 2019, his first year in Tampa Bay, 19.5 sacks. That gets your attention. He had 8 last year, but he is incredibly efficient. He is great against the run. He is really good against the pass, obviously, by those numbers. He gets after the quarterback to the extent where he creates so many hurries that he affects the way the offense tries to run those plays. We saw him stand out, as I mentioned, with those 19.5 sacks last year. But during the Tampa Bay Super Bowl run, he was on fire as well coming off the edge. So I think he is a really good player who is coming into his prime, and just goes to show when you are undrafted, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be a good player. He's grown into that role, and now he's going to make himself a ton of money. Okay, and a lot of sacks as well, as you saw, the most sacks, playoffs included over the last 2 seasons. At #2, Cincinnati's Lawson, Bmac, a guy who hasn't reached the 6-sack mark since his rookie season, but still very valuable.
No question, Chris. He's extremely valuable, and I think he's going to be a surprising name in the market that will cash in big time. The potential was there. I mean, you can't just be alarmed when you look at his numbers. 5.5 sacks last year, first time as a starter there for Cincinnati. But what he meant to the defensive line, he was able to free up opportunities for the other members on the front. He saw a lot of attention, but yet and still, he was consistently getting back in the backfield, being disruptive in the pocket, hitting quarterbacks. He had 64 pressures last year. He had 32 quarterback hits, which ranked 2nd in the National Football League. So just because he wasn't able to reel in the sacks does not mean he was not getting back there, putting pressure on the opposing quarterbacks he's faced. Like I said, he's going to surprise a lot of naysayers, a lot of experts, because I think he's going to cash in big time. I see a lot of Melvin Ingram in his game, the way he bends the corner, the relentless style he plays with. Not to mention, he's not a liability when it comes to running the football, stopping the run. He does a real good job in doing so as well. He's going to receive a nice payday. I'm surprised they didn't franchise tag him, but I think clearly he's okay with that because he's going to have quality options.
Free agency officially beginning next week. You got legal tampering beginning on Monday, and the new league year in free agency on Wednesday, March the 17th. Ryan, #3 is Detroit's Romeo Aguaro, coming off a career-high 10 sacks in a career season all around. He also forced 3 fumbles.
Yeah, you hinted at it, Chris. Those numbers that you just mentioned being career highs for Aguaro, and that's been the issue with him. He had an incredibly average start to his NFL career, and just like I talked about with Shaq Barrett, sometimes that happens. It takes you a while to find your footing. He found his footing primarily in the second half of this season, where he went off. You mentioned those total 10 sacks here. You see 61 pressures, which ranked 9th in the NFL. So he's a guy who understands how contracts work. He knew his contract was up. He balled out at the exact right time, and now he's going to make himself some money. So how much money is he looking at? It'll be interesting to see what teams view him in terms of, was this just a flash in the pan into the season surge by Aguaro, or is this something that he is building on and that you can sustain for the next 2, 3, 4 years? He could be looking to make $10 million or so a year based on that production, that well-timed production at the end of the 2020 season. Ranking the top pass rushers hitting free agency according to Pete Prisco, and really the top 4 or 5 are top 25 players. At #4, Bmac, Bud Dupree,
from your Pittsburgh Steelers, likely going elsewhere. You concerned about the torn ACL he suffered late in the season?
Nah, I'm not. When you look at the guys that have dealt with that injury, they've bounced back like nothing ever happened. And I expect to see the same thing with Bud Dupree. It's a shame he wasn't able to finish the season out with Pittsburgh last year. Played in only 11 ball games. He had 8.5 sacks. He meant a lot to their defense. You can see on the graphic, when he was in the lineup, in totality, their team was much better, especially on the defensive side. But when he was out of the lineup, you did not see the same efficiency on the defensive side. You didn't see the same pressure that Dupree and Watt was able to put on the opposing offenses they faced. And Pittsburgh understands, they know how much he meant to their team. But when it comes to the financial terms, they might not be able to afford him. I mean, over the last 2 years, he's really played real good football. In 2019, he had double-digit sacks as well. So he's going to be a hot name on the market as well. I'm not concerned with the ACL injury. I'm hearing he's on pace to be able to potentially be ready to go in the start of this upcoming season, which is good news for him and his camp. But yeah, he's going to command a nice payday, and deserving so. He's that type of player.
And he's a guy that's right in front of another player who's had some injury issues. At number 5, Melvin Ingram, who's going to turn 32 very soon. And Ryan, he hasn't played a full season since 2018.
Yeah, you mentioned the age, 32. You mentioned the injuries. He only played 7 games last year. He hasn't had double-digit sacks since 2017. But Chris, when he's on the field, he is incredibly disruptive. It may not show up in the sack numbers, but in terms of the pressure and getting after the quarterback and disrupting plays in the backfield, he does that at a really high level when he's healthy. And that's the concern along with the age. Also, something else you have to consider with that age and the potential price tag. And I would imagine he's going to be looking for something north of $10 million a year. Where does he fit? Is he at his best with someone like Joey Bosa on the opposite side, hoping to create that havoc off the end of the other side there? And I think that's the best case scenario. He's not going to go into a situation where he is the primary pass rusher and have a ton of success with the age concerns, with the injury concerns. He needs to be part of a tandem, and I think that may be a landing spot to look for in terms of where he may end up landing, as long as to go along with the team that has the salary cap space to pay him what he's looking to get.
Yeah, you want these pass rushers to get to the quarterback and bring them down, which is what this guy at number 6 did last season. Trey Hendrickson of New Orleans, Bmac 13.5 sacks. Only TJ Watt had more in the NFL.
Listen, one of the best unkept secrets when it comes to rushing the passer is Mr. Hendrickson, Trey Hendrickson. I mean, even if you go back to last year, he only had 3 official starts, but he had 4.5 sacks. He just has the it factor when it comes to sacking the quarterback. 13.5 sacks, a breakout-like campaign for him. The Saints did not decide to tag him. They went with the safety and Marcus Williams, and understanding and knowing that his franchise tag, Trey Hendrickson franchise tag, would be a bit more pricey, and they decided to allow him to hit the market. He's going to command top dollar. When you look at his numbers, 33 quarterback pressures. He only played in 53% of the snaps for the New Orleans Saints. You talked about the 13.5 sacks. Get this, when you look at some of the other elite-like pass rushers that had the same like numbers when it came to sacking the quarterback, Hassan Reddick had 12.5 sacks. Aaron Donald had 13.5 sacks. Zadarius Smith had 12.5 sacks. Myles Garrett had 12 sacks. But get this, those guys played in at least 65% or more of the defensive snaps. So Trey did not have the same opportunities as those said players I just mentioned, but he was able to still give just as much more production than those guys. So that tells you the sky is the limit for him. He has a very, very high ceiling, and he's going to command, anywhere between $17, $18, or $19 million easily, in my opinion, based on how well he played last year.
6 of the top 26 in Pete Prisco's top 100 potential free agents are pass rushers, and Trey Hendrickson coming in at number 26 overall, number 6 hitting the free agent market. Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.